Welcome back. I'm J.A. Kurzweil from Hysteria Lives and the Hysteria Continues podcast. So this time, forget 2.5 hour running times and regular song and dance numbers. This Tamil language slasher thriller is taut and suspenseful. A young female games designer is haunted by a violent event from a year previously, and as the anniversary approaches, her anxiety increases. To make matters worse, she discovers a link to a murder victim that puts her in the sights of a vicious serial killer who has been beheading young women in the local area. Although borrowing a mechanism from a then contemporary North American slasher comedy, this film plays it straight, dealing with some pretty dark themes and conjuring up some major thrills in its final half hour. Now, as with all my reviews, I won't spoil the identity of the killer, or perhaps killers, but there will be a discussion of the plot which may include some light spoilers. Sapna, played by Taapsee Pannu, dresses in a Western style and is estranged from her family, who blame her for falling victim to a violent assault the previous New Year's Eve. They say the tattoo she got of a joystick on her wrist made her a target. Sapna shares her house on a gated community with a live-in maid who becomes increasingly concerned about Sapna's declining mental health. Terrified of the dark, her psychiatrist tells her she's suffering from something called an anniversary reaction and suggests she reconnects with her family. Sapna's anxiety is made worse by pain from a year-old tattoo which seemingly defies explanation. Returning to the tattoo parlour, she discovers that it was made with ink intended for another client who had mixed in the ashes of a daughter who had just been killed by the serial killer plaguing the city. Increasingly distraught, she attempts suicide, first by hanging herself and then jumping from the window of her psychiatrist's building. Sapna survives the fall but is confined to a wheelchair. On the anniversary of the attack, as the new year approaches, her house is besieged by a skull-masked killer, and she discovers that she has 3 chances to outwit him and live through the night. So in case you hadn't guessed, Game Over borrows the plot mechanism of time resetting after each murder from Christopher Landon's Happy Death Day from 2017. However, to dismiss Game Over as merely a clone would be unfair. Unlike earlier Indian language slasher movies such as Whistle, Kuch to Hide, Dun the Fog, all from 2003, it doesn't quite have the same magpie tendencies. Those films would often recreate scenes, often shot for shot, from popular North American slasher movies, albeit with zany hyperactivity. Here the director simply utilises the time reset, but otherwise the action is unique to this film and it feels organic as it references the respawning typical of the video games that Sapna plays and designs. It turns out that the murder victim has survived cancer 3 times, which is the number of lives Sapna now has to cheat death. Game Over arguably feels much more like a North American thriller, shorn as it is of its song and dance numbers and epic running time, coming in at a relatively trim 102 minutes. Admittedly, the film structure may be off-putting for some. It starts with a grisly sequence where a young woman is filmed by a voyeur before being decapitated and her body set on fire, with the killer kicking the severed head through some goalposts in a darkly humorous moment. However, the next hour deals with Sapna's struggles with her past trauma and the discovery that she accidentally has a tattoo containing the ashes of that murder victim before becoming re-traumatised all over again when a skull-faced killer targets her and her eventual chance at redemption. This confrontation takes the form of a home invasion that bears the influence of Mike Flanagan's 2016 film Hush. However, it's so well constructed and shot that it's something of a masterclass in suspense and includes a neat twist that I'll let the viewer discover. Arguably, director Ashwin Saravanan could have taken another cue from Landon's film and made this a more prominent part of his movie. Game Over was released in 3 languages, Hindu, Tamil and Telugu. It garnered praise from critics for its storylining and Pannu's performance in the lead role. India Today called it a kick-ass psychological thriller. It was a minor hit with domestic audiences, but regardless, whilst the film didn't quite share the financial success of Landon's film and thus didn't trigger a sequel, it is a remarkably well-made movie with a gripping final half hour which is sure to thrill any slasher fan. So, I hope you enjoyed that review. Subscribe for more reviews of obscure and not so obscure slashers and gialli. And for the film's body count and for over 600 more reviews, visit my website Hysteria Lives. So thank you for watching and I'll catch you next time.